Charles, thank you so much for having us at Homeacres. It's a place that we've all seen on Instagram and YouTube, and we are big fans of yours, but to be here in person is a real treat. Thank you for having us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
We had some questions from our group here. We have about 30 people from all over the U.S., and they're very curious about several things, and we have a common denominator, of course, for no-dig gardening, and they just kind of want to know a few things about that. So first of all, tell us a history on how did you learn about it? When did you get started with no-dig?
I first heard about it in old Soil Association journals of the 1940s, which I read in the early 1980s. And those journals were called Mother Earth.
Yep.
And the Soil Association then changed that name in the 1960s to be something more scientific. They called it the Journal of the Soil Association. But I really liked the Mother Earth. And there were one or two pieces in that written 1940s about not digging.
Mm-hmm.
The phrase no dig didn't exist then, but they just said not digging. And encouraged me.
Yeah. So how do you get started with that? If somebody's heard about it, they're curious, they believe it works, they see the results that you've provided over decades here, how do you get started with that? And then when do you start seeing results?
Well, you see results in about the first week because you're planting into compost. The classic way to make a no-dig bed is using quite a lot of compost, which doesn't have to be perfect. It could be quite lumpy old animal manure, for example. It could be really old wood chip or whatever it is you can get your hands on. And have a layer of between 4 and 6 inches of that on the cardboard. You only need cardboard if you're covering weeds.
Okay.
So you can start in very unlikely place, loads of weeds like this here, grass, whatever, and cardboard on that, which excludes the light from them and stops them regrowing.
Right.
And then enough compost on top that you both helps to smother any regrowth of their weeds, but also you can plant into it on the same day. So you haven't got to wait. And that means, you can get a very fast entry point. And I would recommend that. You can make a bed now, even when you get back in late May, early June, and plant tomatoes in it or whatever. Because once you've got something growing, that keeps you involved and it makes you more keen to remove any weeds and so on.
One of the things you're famous for are your comparison gardens. You do beds that are dug versus no-dig beds side by side, which is amazing. You keep lots of stats. You know the numbers by heart. But what's happening in the no-dig bed, or maybe not happening in the no-dig bed versus the dug bed, that creates the benefit in favor of the no-dig bed?
The biggest one I feel is that the soil life networks, like the mycelial network and bacteria, have not been broken or disturbed. And they are therefore able to carry on doing what they do already before anyone digs, in supplying the plants with the goodies they need.
Yep.
Because that's what they do. They forage for both nutrients and water, and in return the roots are fed by the leaves, which are photosynthesizing.
Yep.
And that brings carbon compounds, which is sugars, food, for these plant networks. So it's mutual exchange. It's called mutual symbiosis, and that helps the plants to grow. And in the dug bed, not only is that not happening because you break the network with the cultivation, but also I notice it dries out much more easily. And there's something about leaving soil undisturbed, it holds on to moisture more.
Okay, so we've got our beds up and going, and we've followed those steps. We're down the road 6 months, 12 months. I mean, how do we keep the energy going into it, the nutrients going into it? What do we do to refresh it if we need to?
Well, a lot of the nutrients are there already. In this soil that we're sitting on, which is grass and weeds, there's clearly enough nutrients in there to grow more grass and weeds. And so it's not so much that you need to supply a lot. I put on an inch a year of new compost. That's my regular annual top up.
In the fall?
Usually in the late fall, yeah.
Yeah, late fall. And you do it with your own compost for the most part, but around here, we never can make as much as we'd like, correct?
No, I can't. And some people say to me, well, you shouldn't be buying in compost. And I say, well, my customers, I'm selling, say, 3 or 4 tons of vegetables a year.
Yeah.
And I say my customers don't return their poo. So, I can't close that loop, you could say. But we do actually, I haven't had a chance to show you, but we got a compost toilet over there. And actually, I'm very grateful if any of you like to make a contribution before you leave. Because it all has. But we do use that. Both the hay, the urine side, you pee on hay, that goes in these compost heaps.
Yeah.
And then the other side, the poo, sits there for a year after a whole year of pooing. And we use it on the vegetable beds. Well, not only 2 beds, actually. It's not much.
Yeah.
But it grows amazing plants.
Amazing. Speaking of maintaining the health and the nutrients in the soil, How does the no-dig method benefit from a pest control standpoint? Have you found any benefits to more resiliency in the no-dig beds for that?
Yeah, maybe less than I thought. But I've only got that one dug bed to compare. I do notice there's a bit more slug damage to plants when I put them out. It's always the fragile moment, isn't it? Plant shock.
Yep.
And there's more of that on the dug bed.
Yep.
I think there's no dig. For example, you're not disrupting all the ground beetles that live in the soil, and they eat slug eggs. There's a lot going on that we don't know or appreciate, and just breaking it means it isn't happening anymore.
You and I are huge fans of compost and the value of it in the garden. It's really everything that we do to provide the nutrients to the soil. But where we differ is here. This is your sole amendment once a year. You don't mulch on top of it, and I do. And there's definite reasons how I can see you not having to add the mulch, whereas I need to do it. Talk about what would happen here if you added mulch on top of your compost, which is your mulch.
Yeah, well, exactly. Compost is my mulch. A mulch is anything organic matter on the surface. Well, actually, even polythene is a mulch, come to think of it. But I find if I use the undecomposed mulch, I do get more slugs.
Yeah.
And also, interestingly, in springs here are pretty cool, and the compost as a surface is dark. Whereas if I did try hay once in my first year following Ruth Stout, and it's a light surface, it's reflecting a lot of radiation, and it doesn't warm up so quickly. So for me, that's a big factor, because I'm really big on early cropping, and I want to you can see how advanced everything is here.
Yeah.
And then also as a result of that, we can double crop, because a lot of these plants will be gone very soon.
Yeah.
And then we plant something else. So kind of many reasons really, but I'm very interested in using supplementary mulches such as you described, since our weather seems to be getting a bit hotter.
Absolutely. So for the person that wants to get started with this, they followed your information. What are the words that you would offer to somebody if they just had a minute to talk to you about, what do I do to get started and keep it going? What's your advice?
I would say, more than anything, start small. You don't need much ground to grow a lot of food. Have a think about how much pounds of vegetables in weight that you harvest and eat every year. And to give you an idea, the no-dig beds that we looked at, the no-dig bed, they're both 5 feet wide, 16 feet long. And the no-dig bed of just that size gives every year 220 pounds weight of food. So that's what I recommend you do. So in other words, you're concentrating fertility, you're concentrating your time. Therefore, you have less weeding, less watering, because it's all in a small area. Just a couple of those beds that size.
Perfect.
And the other big blessing of no-dig is reduced weeding, as I'm sure many of you have noticed. So we really don't. You've seen how few weeds there are in the garden.
Yeah.
We don't spend a lot of time weeding. We still weed for sure, but it's not a big time component.
But why is that?
I'd love to know more about that. Elaine Ingham talked about this, and she said it's if you don't break the fungal networks, they somehow they don't need to. You get pioneer weeds, that come when soil is disturbed.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the biggest one actually. Around here, the farmers have a saying, chickweed. Do you know what chickweed is in American?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Okay. Chickweed follows the rotavator. So when soil is massively disturbed, which is what a rotavator is doing,
right.
Chickweed is a weed that has very strong, almost wiry roots, as you know from trying to pull it out. It doesn't want to come. So it's binding the soil back together. So weeds, I think, are often a correction of imbalances that we have caused.
Yeah.
And when you keep the soil in balance like this, you just see fewer weeds.